Hello, people that are viewing this online. So I just wanted to say thank you for getting on this online. And this will be for the recorded version as well. We're kind of doing a two-fer webinar and recorded version. So what we'll be doing is that you'll be watching mainly my PowerPoint, and then when it's time for us to do the group discussion, we will be rotating the laptop around, and there's a group here that has volunteered to be our live studio audience, and so you'll be able to participate and group them with them. If you're doing it live, you'll be able to do it live right now. If you are not doing it live, if you're watching it off Schoology, then obviously you won't be able to talk with them because they won't really be there in real life. But you'll be able to perhaps talk with people that are near you, or just listen to the conversations and kind of think about what you would add if you were participating in that conversation in person. Anyways, as I said in this email, this is a totally new technology that we're kind of trying out. We're trying to make a system do two things that we need it to do at the same time. So I appreciate your flexibility as we go through this, and hopefully it'll turn out really well. All right, cool. I'm going to put the post-it back on and let you continue to look at those pop quiz questions. All right, cool. Thank you. All right, thanks for coming, guys. As you folks get settled, you may notice that there's I printed that little quiz, like little pop quiz, fun things from NASA, that they're questions that I didn't know. My favorite is what shape a raindrop takes when it falls. It is not the shape that you are thinking it might be, that we would all draw on a piece of paper if they asked us to draw a raindrop. So I thought that that was kind of fun. So just kind of a brain warmer while you're getting settled and eating a little bit of your dinner if you are online. So yeah, we're doing this like online too. So we'll see how this goes. So if you are online, you can, I attach this document, or you can access the link that is on the PowerPoint in order to give yourself a little pop quiz, or you can ask each other the questions as well. They're just kind of fun. And we will get started here in a few minutes. Thank you.
1 to 2 months. And a seasonal snow for 2 to 6
All
months.
right, guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started because you look all kind of situated. I love that you're looking at the quizzes. That's awesome. Did everybody find out what shape a raindrop is? And now they all have their dinner conversation starter for the evening. That it is not the shape that you normally think. What shape is it? Who got to that part? Hamburger bun, right? Because it's a sphere and then it's traveling through. I know, I feel like I needed to draw a model of that just so that I could totally understand it. But those are actually, you can fight amongst yourselves, but those are yours to take home at the end if you would like, so you can share them with your classroom. They're just kind of fun. All right, cool. We will go ahead and get started. So our agenda for the evening is we just all make sure that you signed in. I think by this point you guys all know the signing in process, but make sure you signed in case you didn't. We're going to go over logistics, just kind of touching up these last few things. Celebrations. Then we're going to spend some time reflecting on lessons 3 and 4. And then we're going to spend a big chunk of time assessing student work. And then we have a break. And then we're going to go into the NGSS tools and practices. And we're doing evaluation and clock hour forms a little bit earlier because we're asking you to do an evaluation that is a little bit longer. That being said, my intention is to get you out of here a little bit early as well. So I kind of explained this a little bit before, but I also wanted just so you can know when I reference things. So we're also putting this out live right now on webinar on Zoom, and then we are recording it off of that and also making the recording that we're going to put on Schoology. So we're trying to make this technology do 2 jobs at once. I've never really used it before besides what I played around with yesterday. So we're going to kind of problem solve this together. So if you notice me talking to people that aren't you, I'm talking to virtual teachers out in the world. So we're gonna go through it together. We're all gonna learn together. So just wanted to kind of explain that. And if you are watching online, thank you for watching online, and hopefully this works. All right, let's go. All right, so cool. So I wanted to go over just a little bit reminder. I showed this slide last time, is just to kind of remind that we've got these 3 parts. And we've got the big part is our car, right? Our pedagogy. This is the shift to NGSS. we've got to have a car. We're not going to get anywhere without a car. So we're really making sure that we understand what that shift looks like, what tools we kind of use with that. And then, of course, you have a car, but it can be a really, really great car, but you need the gasoline to put in it, which is kind of like, right, you can really understand the pedagogy shift with NGSS, but if you don't have something to teach with your students, then you're not going to get very far. So we're kind of looking at the curriculum as the gas, and then we've got our assessment as our roadmap to kind of not just show where you're going, but also to show where you've been. So kind of putting those three pieces together, and this is the little metaphor I came up with to kind of help us understand. I feel like we spent a lot of time talking about the gasoline, about the curriculum. Today's focus is going to be more on the assessment part and also on that pedagogy. Okay? Lovely. So I did want to go over this real quickly. You guys are, normally I would point over there. Here, I'll point right here. So we are right here right now. Remember, this was the one that was going to be a 6-hour sub-release day, but then that wasn't a tenable thing anymore. So we are making it evening where you're all either watching here or you're watching hopefully online right now or online later. And then you're going to have one more, and it's going to be the same structure. It's going to be an optional in-person, or you can do it online, or you can watch it webinar, and that will be in March. Okay, so you are pretty much done with these PDs for the next few months. So yay for that. I'm sure all of you guys are looking forward to that. I know that I am, for a little break. So, and then in March, we will come back again. Okay? This went out in an email a while ago, and I've talked about it since then, but I just wanted to do a reminder that, remember, the original plan was that we would have the launch unit, and then immediately afterwards you would get the second unit that would be grade specific. Well, just with what the options that we had available to us at that time, we were stuck having to pick something that just wasn't going to be the best that we could do, and it wasn't going to be the best for your students. And so instead of putting out something that we didn't feel like was the best fit for you guys, we decided to change our plan. I know that changes make things harder, and I totally get that. And we wouldn't have done it unless we felt like it was really important, but we did. So what you're going to be doing for the winter is you're going to be doing your regular rotation. So whatever it is that that you would have gotten if you hadn't participated in the launch at all, that's the kit that you're going to get. So for the most part, regional, it shows, you know, South region would do this. I think there are some exceptions, but this is from the Science Materials Center of who gets what based on their region. And then in the spring, you are going to get a grade-specific science unit. I'm going to tell you right now, because the next slide is questions. And the first question you're going to ask is, do we know what that unit is? And I have to tell you, I still don't know. I'm not keeping it a secret. It's not this time. I truly don't know. We're really looking at our options. It's harder that we're not in a full adoption, so that limits the things that we can choose, because we need to find something that will fit within our constraints of budget and resources. But I can tell you that we're working really hard to find something that is really great, and also looking something that has sustainability as well, so that we're not having to change things up. So we're still working on it. I do not know. I am not keeping it a secret. We're still working on it, and I am asking for your patience on that. Sorry. Oh, I guess not. Questions weren't yet. Now I just wanted to go over real quickly your teacher requirements that you guys have mostly done. So you've attended SCC 1. If you didn't attend, you should have gotten an email from me asking you to complete the same tasks that the people who did attend did, to only be fair, right? If you're doing them here and everybody's getting the same compensation, we want to make sure that it's equitable. So if you didn't attend, that we're asking you to do the same classwork that the people that were here would have done. Same for SCC 2. If you did not attend that one, then you should have gotten an email from me with a list of the supplemental tasks. SCC 3 Part 1, you're here. So once you're done, you're done. You don't have to worry about that. And then SCC 3, you need to attend in person or either online and submit the supplemental tasks. Okay? All right. Oh, and for that, you get lovely cash and prizes. You get your, so we'll be giving the $250 and you'll be getting that new second unit. Now it's questions. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. So this was just a $250 stipend for the whole package deal, part and parcel. You'll get paid in March. Yep. Any other questions? Did you have one? No. Science Collaborative Community. We worked really hard to think of another acronym to throw at you guys, and that's what we came up with. Yes.
I've been keeping my hands out over the course, just because I'm making notes on them and stuff. So I haven't been like leaving them. That's okay, right?
Of course. Yeah. No. Please take them all. Yes, definitely.
I just mean like there's nothing deterring.
No.
Like, as some kind of.
And you've been showing up in person, right? Yeah. If you've been showing up in person, you don't have to submit anything on Teaching Channel. If you were in person, you're done. If you didn't show up in person, then we need to know that you've done the work that the other people did as well. So you do need to submit the supplemental task. But if I saw your eyeballs and you signed in on that sheet, I've got documentation of that. You're good to go.
I thought we were supposed to do the Teaching Channel stuff along with it. I thought that was part of the.
So we announced
during
during
the green between the red or the red.
right. So we announced during the first SCC, and then we also sent it out an email that it's an option. It was a requirement, but then people were feeling overwhelmed by it. So we turned it into something that was optional, but that something was that would really help your practice, because then you get that chance to kind of reflect, which is something I think that unless we're told that we have to, unless we're really given that opportunity, I think it's really hard to reflect as teachers or as humans for that matter. So by having that time to reflect and kind of just jot down a few sentences and then maybe respond to somebody else's, it was going to add to your practice, but we did eliminate the mandatory posting for it. Any other questions? Okay, cool. We will move on. All right, awesome. So we're going to start off real quick with just a little table share among your at your table about something awesome that has happened, or a funny story, or something a kid said, or something a kid did, or something you said, or something you did that you think, hey, that was really well, or just something that went awesome. And this is just kind of be something you do amongst yourselves in your group. So go ahead and do that, and then there we go. All right, go ahead, talk amongst yourselves.
All right, could we do a super quick round of intros just so that we know who's here and sort of who's talking? Ish.
My name is Anushka Torba. I teach first grade at Wolf K8.
I'm Derek Ramboyce, and I teach first grade at Wolf K8 too.
I'm Lisa Sandrock, and I teach first grade at Northgate.
I'm Carol Lee Walters, and I teach first grade at West Woodland.
I'm Jenya, and I teach first grade at Pathfinder.
All right, and who do we have online?
I'm Amanda, and I teach for second grade at Green Lake Elementary.
Hey, welcome.
Thanks.
I'm Therese Kumasaka. I teach second grade math and science at Beacon Hill International.
I'm Abby. I don't know how to make it so that you see me, but I'm here. I teach at Green Lake Elementary. I'm just super sick, so I'm kind of okay with you not seeing me.
I'm so sorry to hear that. And
That's okay.
I am our tech guru for this little endeavor, and we'll see how it goes. But I think our invitation is just to share something that's been really interesting or awesome.
Well, I was going to have my students share the model with their buddies, but I realized that I was going to have to push them and have it not be their best work if I did the models before a buddy time. So I thought instead I would enlist the help of the buddies to have them have their planning. So they each got 3 Post-its to put what ideas they want to have on their final model. And I wrote a little thing for the buddies to ask them questions and that kind of things. And in my mind, I was thinking, I have no idea what 6th graders are going to do, if they're going to be completely bomb or if my kids are going to not be into it. But they talked the whole time about their puddles, and kids were drawing little zoom out molecule boxes. And I was particularly thinking of one kid he's the kid who's always kind of like rolling around on the carpet, and he was looking at his buddy and totally seemed like he was taking on this role of, I'm an expert on this puddle thing.
when we did our final models, I told the kids, you should go back and get all the sheets that we have that we've done. We had a collection of them, and most of the kids kind of looked at me like I don't need them. And then one little girl goes, she gets done and she looks at me and she goes, and she kind of said it to everybody, I went and got those sheets and mine would not be this good if I had not looked at them. And I was like, woo. And other kids went and got their sheets.
So at the risk of sounding, what sheets are you referring to?
So for the experiments, I had sheets made up, like just really simple things of what you observe and how it applied to our puddle. And just so they would remember, so that when they went back to look, it wouldn't just be our anchor charts. So they had like a little, but she actually looked through them and like remembered, like lots of my kids didn't remember all the things we'd done. And hers actually had quite a bit of stuff on it.
Do you have like an example? Do you have any of them with you?
Yes.
So,
Yes. And she is one of my higher kids. So I can't take too much credit for it.
I don't know. Sort of funny or not. I think my kids we read the book about where does water go, and I think the piece that the kids really tuned into was the idea. We looked at the molecules, and so my kids are all pretty proud of the fact that now they go, it's H2O, which I realize is a small, that wasn't really the big piece I wanted them to take away from it, but they've got that sense of, I have a secret code. I can talk with other scientists. There we are.
Which I feel like is the purpose in naming it H2O in the first place, right? Is like it allows us to communicate
Right.
like meaning. So that's pretty cool.
It is. So I guess when they get Chem 101, they'll know that one.
I guess one of my celebration moments was when we took the measuring cups and like filled one up with mud and one up with dry dirt just to do that one experiment. And then I let it sit overnight. Or we had the water that was dry dirt and then the water that was saturated. And over the weekend, of course, it got even more separate. And so the kids were really excited to understand like how that puddle really got there. And like just like there's nowhere for the water to go. It's completely full. So just really, I don't know, I think for them the light bulb went off, like why are we doing this? And honestly really relate to more like the sponge experiment. They couldn't really wrap their head around why are we doing this. But that one
We'll have to share something.
I don't think we have to, but online folks, we invite you also if there's anything that's standing out.
I had this is Therese talking. I had a similar experience with this sponge experiment because, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they had predictions that the water would soak up by the sponge, but they weren't prepared that it wouldn't soak up all of the water. But they weren't making the connection with that and dirt. So using actual dirt actually drove it home. Like they were like, oh, that's why we did the experiment with the sponge in the water.
Yeah.
All right, one more minute to finish your discussions.
I had a couple of kids make that connection with the sponge after because I had my student teacher do the sponge one and then I did the dirt one and we kind of switched groups. And they really got it with the dirt. Like a bunch of them said, oh, it's like the sponge with the holes. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But I think if we did them close enough together that they made connections.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I wouldn't have thought they would make.
Yeah.
This is Abby. I can share too. I haven't done my final model yet, but my kids got really excited when it snowed on Friday. And so we were talking a lot about the water cycle and they were able to explain how snow happens. So that was really fun. And then we also talked about when we went outside, you could see your breath. And they were able to explain that, well, the water in your breath is condensing, so that's how come you can see it. So it's kind of like a cloud. So that was cool to watch their learning in action.
And I feel like that's, to me, this is Jen, one of the cooler things is I think when you start to dig really deep into one phenomenon, it allows you to explain so many other connected ones and to really have some of those H2O or those just those ideas that could really carry through, and then explain, like, what do I see when I get out of the shower on the mirror, and how does this snow thing happen? So just to be able to hear that some of those extensions are happening too, I think is really good evidence of the understanding that's happening. It's exciting.
All right, well, go ahead and wrap up your conversations. I love that you have so many celebrations to share. That is awesome. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the next thing, and then we'll have break, and maybe you can continue to discuss your celebrations. Awesome. All right, so as I said, we're going to spend a little bit of time first reflecting on lessons 3 and lessons 4. So I feel like we ended up talking, when the last time that we met, we were talking a lot about those summary charts, and I think that was an oversight on my part as an instructor to not, we hadn't spent a ton of time on the first SCC to talk about those summary charts, and then people weren't really using them or weren't sure how to use them, and so we spent a greater amount of time the last time we met talking about those summary charts, kind of seeing about how they're important, how they really help students make that connection to their models and that connection to the phenomenon. So hopefully you've had a chance now to use those summary charts, and now you understand their value and understand maybe better how to use them. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to maybe reflect on the summary charts and how you use them. And then you're gonna have 2 choices. You can either talk about the summary charts and using them, or you can also have a conversation about the final model, like how did it look when you were giving that to your students? What did they say? What were they thinking? What did you notice? So our 2 discussion prompts are, what did you see or hear as students were revising their models? And how did you use the summary table to help students explain the phenomenon? So what you're gonna do is there are index cards on your table. There's either a pink one or a green one. So if you want to talk about the students revising their models, then you're gonna pick a pink card, and I just want you to jot down your ideas. If you wanna talk about the summary tables, the summary charts, then you're gonna go ahead and pick a green index card and go ahead and jot down your thoughts about that as well. So just kind of some individual write time right now for a couple minutes. And if you are viewing online, it always feels so weird to do this. But if you're viewing online, if you could please write those down as well. It doesn't have to be a pink or green index card, but if you could write them down online or write them down on a piece of paper, and then I will be asking those to be posted on Teaching Channel. So just jotting down a couple of sentences, answering either of those questions. You guys are going to be discussing them, and then if you're viewing online, I'll just be asking them to be posted on Teaching Channel under Lesson 4. All right, cool. Thank you. Go ahead and start on that task.
What do you see or hear as students were revising their models?
and stand up. And you are going to find somebody that has a different colored or has the same colored card as you. So find somebody who has a pink card if you have a pink card, a green card if you have a green card. Go ahead and have a conversation with them. When you're done, find somebody new to have a conversation with. Same color card. Yep. So you're discussing the same thing. So go ahead and find somebody. When you feel like you're done with that discussion, have a new one.
I think it'd be good to have probably 2 green folks staying.
Are you going to have a virtual discussion?
Is that okay with you?
What? I'd say.
Thanks for volunteering in this stuff.
All right, so I think this is a crew that thought a little bit about green, specifically the summary chart.
So the question is, what did you do to help them make connections, right? I forget. The first time, each student, whenever I've done a summary chart before, it seems like it's really not. And so I was trying, when I did it after the first experiment, I was trying really hard to think about how to make it concrete for them. And so instead of using the words, the big person words, for the day, observation, conclusion, connections, I just had pictures. So an eyeball for what do we see? What do we watch in this experiment? And then I had a picture of a brain and a light bulb. So what is this from what we saw? What do we think happened? What do we think about that? And that's still that's a really hard jump for them to think about. Well, we watched the boiling water, and so getting them to think what's the difference between what you saw and what you think was happening was hard. But they were able to do it. A few kids were. Not everyone still was able to, but a few kids said that. But a few kids were able to, and I think that helping them to see the picture, an idea, get what that meant more. And just also the questions and connections first, because it seemed like summer that they had questions just about what the idea part, the conclusions meant. And so when I asked them that, they did have a lot of questions. And then from those questions, when I said, well, how do these questions and your ideas, how do they go with our puddle question? And it seemed like they were able to more explain how it went with the puddle question. So
I'm a little bit out of it today. Kind of a tough day at the office. So I just, for me, it's just, everybody has like these little slightly different ideas, and then they kind of like start merging. It's like dough, everything's kind of like sloppy and messy, and then the summary chart just kind of helps it kind of form it all together. So that's kind of what I was noticing.
Yeah, totally. And also, as they're forming their dough together, that's a great analogy. As their dough is coming together, if there's, especially in an activity like this, that's kind of hard maybe for them, because it's definitely a higher level thing. When one kid puts voice to that dough, it's like they're all like, that's what you're talking about. And I totally understand that. I just didn't know what you're asking me because I'm 6, and you know what I mean? So,
Did any of you think about summary chart?
I did pink, what students were talking about while revising. And I just thought it was really interesting. Like after doing the gallery walk, the students were a lot more reliant on using evidence from others' models and being able to say, well, I saw this person who added this detail, which was different than mine, or I hadn't thought about. And then we did another gallery walk before we revised our models, or I gave them the opportunity to either revise it or do a new one. And it was nice to see them implementing those things.
Sorry, go for it, Amanda.
Oh, I was just going to say it was nice to see them kind of learning from each other and building knowledge together that way.
Does she want us to wrap it up?
I think in 2-ish minutes. So if there's anything on
I
each-
also did a pink card, a
Yeah.
virtual pink card. I found that my students, when we did the initial model, like maybe only one student talked about how water can get absorbed into like roots and plants. And so afterwards, after the celery experiment and having a discussion about that, I found more students in their final models adding like that relationship to what happened to the puddle water, which was cool because I think they thought of it so separate before, like this cool celery with the dye. And
Yeah. Did you see them? I'm always curious because it's hard to figure out how to ask young students to sort of show this, but did you see them in their talk maybe like cue to like, oh, this is like we saw with the celery, or the celery made me think this, or
I had some students in small groups do that, but after the gallery walk, I saw more students like realize like, oh, I also made that connection, but I didn't put it in my model.
oh, very cool.
Yeah. I feel like I can't tell where I'm looking, so I'm sorry. But
I know. No, I think this is perfect.
thanks.
For me, I haven't done the final models yet. We just finished like the water cycle parts of this, so I'd still like to spend a couple more weeks of science on the plant parts and the soil parts. So I can answer that question on the teaching channel later.
That would be exciting to see.
All right, go ahead and finish up your conversations, and you can get us settled back at your seat.
All right.
All right, awesome. So, yeah, so I basically just wanted to make sure that we had some time to do that reflecting, kind of talking about that, the metaphor of the car again, right? We're really making sure that what we're doing here isn't something that we just did just for this unit, but hopefully something that we can repeat again. And definitely those summary charts and revising models are ideas that we can repeat. And so just taking a little bit of time to reflect on that. So again, if you were here, you're done with that part of it. If you're watching online, if you could please post your reflections online under the teaching channel under lesson 4, that would be fantastic. Thank you. All right, so we are now going to move on to the roadmap part of this, the assessment. So really, this is, I think, really exciting work. I already had a bunch of people come up to me and they just wanted, like, you're just dying to share these student models, and that is awesome and so exciting. So we're going to spend some time looking at the student work. So before we get started on student work, we wanted to make sure that, right, this is about, the reason we're doing this unit is because of the new Washington State Science Standards, or NGSS, which aren't even really that new. We adopted them in 2013. But right, that's the reason that we created this launch. So we want to make sure that we are also connecting this work to NGSS. And so on your table, actually, we'll go ahead. So there's, as you guys remember, you received bookmarks when you attended the 6-hour training. And they broke and if you don't remember, that's okay. You look very confused. No worries. And so they NGSS is broken down into 3 parts. You've got your disciplinary core ideas. So that's your content. I think that's what we most think about with science, right? Like, you know, photosynthesis and absorption, right? We've got these ideas, this content. So I think that's where we put a lot of our focus before in science, was on the content. But then with Next Generation, you've also got the cross-cutting concepts, and then you've got those practices, the science and engineering practices. So it's called a 3D approach because there's 3 dimensions. And so when you're looking at what you're teaching kids, you're not just asking them to understand that content, you're asking them to see that cross-cutting concept, and you're asking them to do the same practices that scientists and engineers use as well. So you're not just, do you know this thing, but can you do this thing? Do you understand this connection? So that's why we call it 3-dimensional. So we're going to go ahead and look at, these are the core ideas that kind of connect to puddles. I do want to say that puddles was created for a different purpose than to be like, okay, we're going to take this standard and we're going to teach it directly. Puddles was created to be K2, to kind of understand some of the practices of NGSS, So these are not a direct, always a direct connection, but there is a correct connection. So it's connected physical science, energy, and the core idea there is that sunlight warms the Earth's surface. So it's a pretty basic idea, but you can definitely see that connection to the puddles unit. And then it's connected to physical science, matter, and its interactions. So matter exists as different substances that have observable properties. Different properties are suited to different purposes. Objects can be built up from smaller parts. That one might be a bit more not as directly connected, but you can see how soil, when we're talking about the soil and the plants, how different materials interact with each other and how they have different properties. So now we're going to be looking at an actual performance expectation. So on your table, you should have a piece of paper that looks something like this, except in black and white. If you are online, you do not have this document, but you can go ahead and look at the PowerPoint instead, or you are free to look it up online as well. And there's also even a fancy app like Common Core has for your phone. NGSS has an app on your phone that you can look up all the standards as well. So I did want to show you guys what an actual performance expectation looks like. We're not going to go into it super deep because as you can see, there's a lot to it. But I want you guys to understand the different parts and how the different parts work together, and then how those parts connect to the work that we're doing with puddles, because that's the foundation of what we need to know if we're going to be assessing student work. So as you can see, this one is for kindergarten. So that means kindergarten, physical science, and it's the third subject, or the third part of physical science, energy. And you can see here that we've got that same content that we talked about before. So K, PS3-1, make observations to determine the effect of sunlight on Earth's surface. So it's pretty broad, like the effect that sunlight warms the Earth. We're really, I think, probably taking it quite a bit deeper than that, because I think, and hopefully you agree, that I think our kindergartners are able to do more than that. So we're taking this, but then we're taking it further as well. But you can see how it starts there, and then we've got our disciplinary core idea here. Then these are our practices: planning and carrying out investigations, constructing explanations and designing solutions, and then we talk about cause and effect. Just to kind of give you a little bit more information about the performance expectations, or the standards is how they call them, performance expectations, or PEs, is they also do something cool down here where they talk about the connection to Common Core. So you can kind of keep reading down here and see those connections to Common Core as well. So that one is the one for kindergarten. Here it is for second grade. So same idea, we're looking at this part here. So it's second grade, physical science 1. So plan and conduct an investigation to describe and classify different kinds of materials by their observable properties, and analyze data obtained from testing different materials to determine which materials have the properties that are best suited for intended purposes. Once again, not a direct correlation, but you can definitely see that connection when you're looking at the soil, and like the wet soil didn't seem to absorb as much water as the dry soil. You can see that connection. And we're talking about observing properties of matter right here. And then you can still see the Common Core practices, the science and engineering practices, and the cross-cutting concepts. So these are the PEs. There's a lot, I know, on each PE, but once again, it's really looking at that. It's why we're having this training, right? Because it's a holistic approach. It's not just, you need to understand the word evaporation, right? Which is what our science looked like before. You need to understand the water cycle. It's like, well, you need to understand that, but you also need to use these practices and understand these connections. So just kind of wanted to give you that as your basic PE. And then what we did is we then created a rubric that we can be using to assess. For those of you that printed it out already, or that you saw it online, I made a mistake, and that happens, is I accidentally sent you guys all the copy that has all of our edits on it, instead of the one that says don't track changes. Like there's a little button and it says review, and then it says track changes or not track changes, and I forgot to unclick track changes. But I'm taking it as a great learning opportunity to show the process that we worked through as we were trying to come up with a rubric that really we felt would really address and be easy to work with, but also made sense, addressed the standards, addressed where your kids were, and looked at those models. So if you do have it online, you can, if you open it up, and then there's a little tab at the top that says review. I don't know why I'm doing this. They can't actually see me. The only people that can see me are you when you have it in person in front of you. But at any rate, there's a review tab, and you click show markup, and then it does markup, right? And you should say no markup. And then it'll just show a regular version that doesn't have a lot of editing marks on it as well. So sorry about that, guys, but that's how hard we work to try to come up with a rubric that would be most impactful for you. All right, so talking about the rubric that does not have all the edits on it, there are front and back for you guys that are here. One side is for second, one side is kindergarten. We're giving you both because you might want to decide which one you want to use. They are essentially the same except for the one that talks about the heat sip transfer on the kindergarten one is slightly different than the one for the first and second. The first second goes a little bit deeper. Other than that, they are identical, so you can decide which one works best for you. But we wanted to give you both of them. And then looking at them is one thing I wanted to talk about, and I was talking to other people, and I think we all have this idea somehow, and I think maybe it's because we've done so much testing that we feel like if we don't see it in the model, that if they didn't show it in the model, then that's not real, right? If they just told us about it, it's like, oh well, you got to show it or else it doesn't count, and that's not how NGSS works at all. So if they didn't show it in the model, but you had a conversation and they told you about it, that totally counts. Or if they wrote about it, that totally counts as well. So it's not like, I think we have this idea of like, well, it says draw a model, so if you don't show it on the model, then it's not correct. But that's not at all how it works. So however they conveyed what was going on in their head is totally a valid thing to assess. So whatever way that they gave you that information. And then another thing that we're talking about is really making sure that they're showing the relationships between things and cause and effect and how those go together, and that they are changing their ideas based on evidence, right? Or supporting ideas that they had before, but now they have the evidence to support it, and they got that evidence from the investigations that you guys did together. So here is the first row, and the first row is talking about revising models with evidence. Right? That's a really big thing. We want to make sure that they are going back to the things that they did and they're revising. So here it kind of walks you through what each of these numbers look like. So whether they're approaching or meeting. So, and then we go on to the heat transfer. So this is kind of one idea. There's three main ideas that we're kind of boiling it down to, and you can see that connection to the Common Core standards. And then we've got, so then here you'll see the lines. And the reason we left lines there is because it might look different in your classroom depending on what grade you are or where you teach or what your classroom looks like that year. So what you're gonna spend some time doing is you're gonna spend time filling in these blanks. So we have here that they express a component of the explanation without showing cause and or relationship. So I gave you an example of what could go here in a blank. Like they show a sun, but there's no connection between the sun and the puddle. They know somehow a sun is there and they have a drawing of a sun. Or maybe they have, a cloud, right? But there's no connection between that. So that would be an example of something that you could write right here. Then you go on to meeting, and now they're starting to show those connections. So what does that look like in your classroom? What kind of expectations do you have? Do you want them to be thinking, okay, they need to have an arrow from the sun down to the puddle, or they need to have, I need to see heat from the sun. So you decide, and you're filling in kind of starting with our basis of a rubric, but then adapting it to fit your classroom and your needs. So you're filling in here about what does that look like for your students, and then the same with the 4. So what would an expanded idea look like? I mean, do they show, that would be, do they show the molecules, right? That would perhaps be an expanded idea depending on where you decide that lays. And then it goes on to the same idea for absorption into the ground, because that's another causal idea. Once again, you decide what that looks like in your class with your models, and then use by plants. Okay? So that's the basic rubric. And then I created a classroom tracker for final model assessment rubric. So this end, if you have 29 students in your class or less, all of your students will fit on this because it's copied onto 11 by 14 paper, or 8.5 by 14 paper. So you can put in all your students, and then here you can see you can give them a score each. Now, you can say, like, well, what if, we didn't talk about the plants using it? Like, we got so into the other parts and we totally didn't talk about that. Well, then, if you really didn't talk about it, then don't assess your students on it, right? You can just draw a line through that part and don't assess it. And that's okay, too, because you were given flexibility on where you wanted to spend that focus. So if you didn't talk about it, then it's not fair to ask your students to show it in a model. So adjust that rubric and adjust this classroom tracker to work for you. So basically, I'm going to give you guys some work time now. So the 2 tasks that I really want you to focus on right now is I want you to fill in those blanks on the rubric. So you have your models hopefully with you, and I want you to look through your models and be like, okay, if I think a student's showing a 3 on heat transfer and how that evaporation works, what does that look like to me? What am I asking? So spend that time creating that rubric so it's a tool that works for you with your kiddos. And then you can spend the rest of the time looking at your students' or your students' final models and go ahead and assessing them. Okay, so this is time for you to spend on science. I know that we never get enough prep time, so I'm giving you this prep time to get this work done because I know that it's hard to fit it in during other parts of your day. So use this time for you. I'd really appreciate if you spent it working on science. But go ahead and spend this time. We're going to have about, let's see what time it is. I'm going to give you guys about 25 minutes, okay? So 25 minutes, work on the rubric, work on assessing student models, work on, if you haven't done any of that stuff yet, if you haven't, then make a plan. When are you going to do a final models? When are you going to do a summary chart? When are you going to do the rest of these lessons? So go ahead and just spend this time planning these science lessons. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. That's my next slide. Yes, I do have a correlation. Yep. All right, great. So if you're here, you're working here in person. If you are online, then I think you should spend this time doing this work as well, especially since if you are online, I'm asking you to take a picture or scan both your rubric and your classroom tracker and post both of those on Teaching Channel. So this would be a great time to get that work done. Yeah, I think that's that. So go ahead, 25 minutes to work. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Beth. I think you're still muted. Anyway, they just told us to. Hey.
Hi, okay. Hey.
So we've gone over a little bit about reflecting on the lesson 3 and 3A and 4 already.
Okay.
And so they had us talk a little bit about like the standards behind the lessons and how they were developed, and then they wanted us to go over our assessments. And so they have this rubric that she attached to the email.
Okay.
And we're supposed to go over our models and kind of fill it out if at all possible. And the online people have to post it on teaching channel.
Gotcha.
Right now it's just our work time.
Okay, that's why
there's like nothing going on.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I should have all my stuff filled out in front of me.
Yeah, theoretically, and then she wants us to like take a picture of it to upload it later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Oh, wait, no. June, stop. Hello? Hello?
Hi.
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 Hi, this is Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Hey, question. Do you think revising the models, do you think the with evidence, do you think the arrows count as evidence? Can they be the only evidence?
I think that's kind of what they want us working on that rubric is like coming up with like she gives you a couple of examples of like what a 2 would be,
Yeah.
but then using like your own models to fill in, okay, like what are you looking for then in a 3. So I have like some of mine, like when they're showing arrows and it's like related to the use of plants
Yeah.
in the water absorption, that would be like that could be also like a 4, whereas like a 3 would just be the roots being there. A 4 would be like roots with arrows. So I think it kind of depends.
Yeah, okay. So that's where you follow the rubric.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And she also said that it didn't necessarily have to be on their model for it to count. It could just be in their explanation if you talk with them.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you.
Good luck. You're welcome.
is my I need this like,
All right, guys. It is time to wrap this up. I know that you may not have gotten all of them done, but hopefully you got a nice start. Hopefully that rubric tool is working for you. So I sent you a copy, but there's also on the teaching channel, and you can download the Word document there. And feel free, I made sure it was uploaded as a Word document, so you're free to open it up and adapt it and make it work for you. So go ahead and use that. Once again, if you're watching online, please make sure that you do the tracker and the rubric, and then submit it on teaching channel so that we know that we all did that work. All right, cool. We are going to move on and talk. So last time we met, actually, I'm not sure. No, never mind. So this was a development because I do two sessions of each SCC, and I don't think you guys got this one, but we were talking about student voice and making sure that the students get a chance to share their voice as well. And we're also applying for this grant, and so we were looking for student voice. And so the lovely folks at UW made a super cool student evaluation. And it was just supposed to be for the people that were interested in doing this extra little student oral. That's why it was originally an idea. Yeah. But I was like, hey, let's make sure everybody sees it because I think it's really cool. Whatever copies are on your table are yours free to have. So you can figure it out amongst yourselves. But I really thought it was cool for K2 because it's a lot of pictures. And so something that they can easily grab onto and just kind of think about where they are in science and what they liked and what made an impact for them instead of just what we think maybe. So feel free to use these. This is also on teaching channel. So you're also free to download a copy or make photocopies, however you would use. It's not a requirement or anything. It was just something really cool that was created. And I was like, let's give this to everyone because it's awesome. So feel free to use that. And then as I promised, report cards. So I did look on the report cards for K2, and of course your report cards, we can't change the report cards just for the people that are involved in the launch. That's obviously not a feasible idea, but I did kind of look at the report cards, and I think that there are definitely places where you can use those connections, and you can still use the report cards as a tool with the work that you've done with puddles. So the way I really saw the connections is in the concepts and principles. Even though they were created to go along with our FOSS kits, I think K2, you can really see that connection in physical science, just like we saw that connection to physical science with the NGSS. And then for the first and second grade ones, I think you can see that that connection with earth and space science. So you can kind of use your puddles work to assess both of those. Systems, I think obviously this very much fits into a system, right? We're talking about the system of how the water is changing. And then inquiry, obviously, as well, that we're really talking about. We have this question, and then how are we going about using investigations to answer this question? So make it work for you. I'm sorry that it doesn't have, the specific words, but I think it's something that we definitely can work, and that will work for your report cards as well. All right. It is now break time. So it is, let's say it's 6 o'clock. So let's meet back here at 6:10. Kid bathrooms are over there. I don't know where grown-up bathrooms are, but there's no kids, so you can use them. And are they over there? Is that what you're pointing? They're all over the place. Lovely. And we'll be back at 6:10. I guess if you're viewing online, you get a break as well. Or if you're viewing it on Schoology, I guess you can just fast forward until you hear me talking again, I guess. Anyways, all right. See you guys all in 10 minutes. All right. So we will go ahead and move on. We have one more kind of section, one more task that we're going to go to, and then we'll do evaluations and hopefully get you out of here just a little bit earlier. So back to that car analogy, right? We spent some time talking about the assessment. Now we're going to talk about the pedagogy, because as we talked about at the beginning, you are done or nearly done with puddles, right? That doesn't mean that you don't do anything new, that you just go back to the way that it was before. You can still use these practices and this pedagogy that you learned, and we would love you to still apply that to the future science that you're doing, not just waiting until you getting that second unit. So we're going to spend some time talking about that pedagogy and really talking about what tools did you do, what tools did you use, what resources did you use when you were doing the puddles unit, and giving you some time to think about maybe how you could make some connections with the science that you're doing during the next unit. So the last 11 by 14, no, 8.5 by 14 page on your tables, and you got this online as well in the document, it's also on Teaching Channel, is something that looks like this except with more rows. So this is really what we're going to use to kind of think about the idea, right? We're not going to teach puddles again, but hopefully we might use some of the tools that we did during puddles again in the future. So we're going to spend some time looking at the tools that we've used and seeing how they connect to NGSS and seeing how they really increase student learning. So basically right now we're making our own grown-up version of a summary chart, right? We did, if you kind of think of what teaching the puddles unit as your investigation, now we're kind of going back through and we're connecting it to NGSS. So we're going to do our own little summary chart here. So I'm going to walk us through filling out the first row, and then you guys are going to fill out the rest of your rows. So here we've got, the first one, we've got tools and resources. So, and this is, I think when I first saw this, I was like, when I was first introduced to it, I was like, what is that? It has to be something fancy. No, it can be as simple as, a turn and a talk. That's a tool and a resource, right? That's one of those teacher tricks that you have that you can use. So for this, let's say the discussion stoplight, right? That's something we used in lesson 1. Maybe you used it in other lessons as well. I know a lot of people are like, hey, that really seemed to work well. So there's a tool, right? Discussion stoplight. So then why would I use this tool or resource with my students? So you could write down something like, well, this really helps support students in listening to one another, right? Because they're thinking about how they can add on. So that's why we would do it. And how does it really help me focus on student learning? Well, it puts students' contributions at the center of my practice. So instead of the teacher just giving all the knowledge and the kids are listening, the kids are listening to each other. Great practice, right? And when might I use this? During whole class discussions, okay? And then the last one is we're connecting it to, how does it connect to the NGSS practices? So remember, that's that 3-dimensional. We've got the content, we've got the cross-cutting concepts, and then we have the practices. So we're gonna go look at those practices, and I have them here again for you, and those are our science and engineering practices. So you have asking questions and defining problems, developing and using models, planning and carrying out investigations, analyzing and interpreting data, using mathematics and computational thinking, constructing explanations and designing solutions, engaging in argument from evidence, and obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information, right? So these are the practices, not just the knowledge that we want kids to have. These are the things we want them to be doing, because these are the things that scientists and engineers do. So you could think, okay, well, that discussion stoplight really helps them with the communicating info. And you could probably put it in some other areas as well, but we've got communicating info here. So that, for example, is how you would fill in one block of one row of the summary tool and resources chart. So now you guys are going to fill in the rest of it plus 1, because I forgot that we would be filling out 1 as a group. So you'll be doing this plus 1 more. So you'll end up with 9 at the end of this. And we're going to use a protocol that I made up, that I named on Halloween. So I'm calling it the blob. And for this protocol, you will first be completing 1 by yourself. So 1 new row, so beyond the discussion stoplight, you'll do 1 by yourself. and then you're going to be doing it in partners, and then you're going to be doing it in groups. So by the end of it, you have a completed summary chart, and you've had a chance to talk to each other. So I will kind of walk you through as we go through this. This is where you'll be getting up and moving and talking with each other. So for the first part of my blob protocol is I want you individually, and I will give you 2 minutes to do this. I want you to complete one row. So kind of using that same idea, I will put up the chart or the page that says the practices so that you have that practices. So thinking of just one tool that you use during this unit, one little teacher trick that worked really well, and completing that chart. Okay, 2 minutes, go for it. And if you are online, since you'll be needing to submit this as well on the teaching channel, I would go ahead and spend your 2 minutes doing this as well. Lovely.
So do you want to take it back to that one?
More seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, now we're moving on. So now in partners, so you are finding a partner and you are going to share and complete another row. So you share yours and your partner shares theirs, and by the end of that, then you will have a total of 3 rows, but you will have done 2 rows with you and your partner, okay? So you have 4 minutes in order to do that. So go ahead and get started.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. We can find a guess.
Should I be partners with one of those guys, maybe? Oh, I guess are they doing that?
Good. All right. What do you guys think? We're trying to figure out how to do the blob. Would you guys care to be partners with us?
Sure.
Yay.
So I wrote down the summary chart because it was fresh in my mind, I think. Why would I use this tool or resource with my students? To help them to connect their learning, connect with their learning to something else that they've learned before, some other understanding they have, and reflect on what their new learning is. Why would this tool or resource help me focus on student learning? Because in order for me to guide students to do that, I would have to summarize the learning goal for myself, so I knew where I was trying to get them to go. And when might I use this tool? I said after any new learning. It doesn't necessarily have to only be science, but anytime when they're experiencing new ideas about something. And how does it connect to NGSS practices? I said all, but that was maybe a little bit lazy because I had only 10 seconds left when I got to that box.
Sorry, what was the last part? What did you use? How did it connect?
I said it connects with all the practices, but that was
nice.
So it connects with engaging in argument from evidence, obtaining, evaluating, and communicating information, asking questions and defining problems,
Probably
I think-
analyzing and interpreting data. Yeah.
Constructing explanations, if I didn't say that already. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of them, not all. A
Yeah.
lot.
All right. Let's have one nominee from our online crew.
I can go. I said the gallery walk.
Cool.
That was probably my favorite thing, probably because my students did so much better than I thought they would. Why would I use this tool with my students? Because it was like a great way to share student ideas with like a low stress environment. We're all walking around and there's not a whole lot of language going on, which I appreciated, and the kids seemed to really like. Why would this, sorry, I'm trying to look at both the screen and my tablet's not that big. How would it help me focus on student learning? Students can build their knowledge gained from other student models. When might I use this? Whenever we need to get up and move, or anytime we've developed an artifact that we could share. And then how does it connect to NGSS? And yeah, the first one, it was really quick too. I was trying to read through. I picked out analyzing and interpreting data, just because the kids seem to gain a lot from the gallery walk.
30 more seconds.
Cool.
I can go next if that's okay. I just can't look at the document and this screen at the same time. So can you tell me if I missed any headers as I talk? Thank you. So I was thinking that I would like to keep the model building and revising in the back of my head and other things. I felt that was a really powerful tool for especially like my first graders that weren't writing yet and didn't quite have those communication tools that some of my second graders have. So that gave them a great access point, and then they could talk through their model and explain it to me without like forgetting what they meant to say. But then also keeping that as like their starting point so that now they can go back and show their learning on what they already knew, and they can show themselves how much they learned, I think is going to be a really powerful tool. So I think that connects with the NGSS standards because it's, oops, I'm on low power, sorry. That it's very, very model driven to begin with. And that's like a big part of what the standards are going towards. So.
Yeah. So especially like the developing and using models, probably
Yeah.
key practices there. Are there particular times you would think to use it?
Oh,
All right, 10 more seconds.
I think I was trying to connect a lot to literacy. I'm doing my national boards in literacy right now, and visual literacy is a really big component of that. So I made that connection myself, but now I want to be more intentional of bringing that into like my reading times and my writing times and not just with science.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. All right, so now you are going to take your partnership and you are going to join with another partnership, thus creating a group of 4. So now you have a group of 4, and you are going to complete 2 more rows on your chart, sharing each other's information. So we are blobifying. Your blob is becoming bigger. So go ahead and team up with another partner group, and you have 6 minutes for that.
Good. I'm thinking since we have 4 here, we could be the 4 and then we could join the next blob phase. Would that work for you?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so Abby, you were saying really thinking cross-curricular.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in particular, visual literacy connecting to model building and revising.
Yes.
Okay. And then Therese, was there anything sort of in particular you were thinking about, or did you pick a similar one?
Well, what I find is I don't let my students talk as much as they should. So I'm using more of those back pocket questions and the turn and talk strategies to get them talking, because today when I was having them work in their small groups, they were saying a lot, like, their conversations were more in depth than I get from them, and that I allow them to talk. So, they're second graders and they're chatty. So I find like I need to let them talk more because they're learning more from each other by sharing their learning than they're getting from me, like talking at them all the time.
Okay. So maybe you would highlight like a turn and talk.
Yeah, I would do. I need to do more turn and talk. I find that when we do the gallery walk, like that was the strategy that I wrote up on my table. But when I do the gallery walk, those students that are more reserved and shy about speaking in front of the class, when we go back to do like a group share of what we observed, they don't always like comment on what they've seen. So if I do more turn and talks and give them a smaller audience, then maybe their partner can share back to the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Do we want to just take a moment to sort of think with turn and talk across the sheet?
Okay.
We can capture that.
So I have to pull my sheet up. I have two computers going on because the other one.
Oh, technology.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, I couldn't get it to print at work, and so I have to actually pull it up on here. Sorry.
No worries.
I have part of it on here.
Yeah. We can also just think together.
Okay.
I just think that would be really productive. So turn and talks.
So the why is, it models scientific collaboration. So, when scientists are exploring a concept, they don't just it's not just them thinking about what's happening. They actually have there's a group of scientists working together, might be researchers, they might be other, other people in other fields. So it's actually a scientific practice that people have to collaborate on their thinking. So that's the why. And I'm pulling up the rest of my chart. Sorry, I was writing notes at the same time. Do you have it in front of you? You can.
What the columns are? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one was why for students, and then thinking about why would this help me or us focus on student learning?
Yeah. So I obviously, like I was saying, that the students that aren't as open to speaking, when I hear, what I do often when they're working in groups is I have them, you can share with your partner and you can share what you're thinking or what your partner shared if you have their permission. And so it gives the students who are willing to speak a chance to voice their partner's thinking. And so I have a few students in my class that just they will write what they're thinking, which is great. But when they're sharing in a group, they don't feel comfortable speaking. Mm-hmm. So for me, it helps me understand, that they're actually grasping the concept.
Yeah. Another one sort of that I'm thinking about, well, something I heard you say is that you also then have that opportunity really to listen in. Mm-hmm. And so you can actually hear some ideas that might be in the mix that they might not, if we're thinking of turn and talk, they might not raise whole group at this point, but that are sort of in the mix that could then be pulled in.
Another thing also that I think helps too is that talking about your ideas is a way to plan what you're going to then go down and write. And so getting the opportunity for kids to be able to say what their ideas are out loud is going to help them to solidify what they think, and then also maybe connect it to other places, like what their partners are saying, or as they're talking, they may come up with ideas they didn't even know that they had.
All right. When might we use this?
Well, I should be using it more often than I do. But I think it's a great strategy. I did it today with my predictions. We were doing kind of an extension lesson. So you could turn and talk and tell your prediction to a partner. And if it was similar or if you're building upon someone else's idea. And then just, at the end, it's probably good as reflection for me as an educator too, to know what I'm going to be teaching, what I need to reteach in the next lesson.
Yeah. And then I do think we already kind of talked a little bit about how it connects to NGSS practices with what you were saying about scientists communicate and collaborate. Mm-hmm. So especially that last practice, communicating information could be one.
Constructing explanations also.
Yeah. Yeah, and doing that together.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe asking questions. I've seen some interesting sort of more structured turn and talk protocols that really invite particular kinds of communication. And so your job is to ask your partner a question that's gonna, how do they know that? Or that's gonna push their thinking deeper.
All right, your last blob of 5. We're now going to make a group of 8. So your group of 4 is going to join
right.
Wow.
So
You're
you
on the
are
move,
now
friends.
All right.
a big blob,
Huge
and you're
blob.
filling in the rest of the chart.
Huge blob. All right. All right. We have 3 folks on our computer, so we will all blobify here.
We shall all blubberfy.
Indeed.
I'm okay. I just need to slice the right.
Come on in.
I have back pocket questions. Does anybody have that one?
Yes.
I got that one.
And if your group of 8 is not exactly 8, that's
Oh, we
all right.
did a pretty good
Blob,
job
you can't
with
keep
the
Oh,
same
I'll-
things.
okay, good.
Sorry, I'm looking at yours. Cool.
Why I would do that is to probe them to further develop their ideas and explain their thinking. Why, the second why, help me focus on student learning. It allows time for them to explain, and I can assess their understandings, and which will inform my next steps. When is looking at their models together, or possibly ahead of time on a post-it note on their models to then talk about them. And how engaging in argument from evidence.
Yeah.
I had the gallery walk.
Cool. That was one we talked about too.
You want me to read across?
Yeah.
Okay. I felt it was a chance for students to see others' work and to lead in discussion, especially for the shy kids, because they could see someone else posted it. So when we came to discussion, they were a little bit more willing to share because someone else had also said it. The why is students learn from other students a lot of times better, or they relate more to seeing what other kids do. When I might use it was prior to the whole class discussion, because it gave them a chance to digest everything before they came to discuss. And I said the how was developing and using model.
Yeah. Amanda, is there anything you would want to add to that?
I think, yeah, just like what you said about like the shy kids are being able to like feel more confident, like that low stress environment that the gallery walk creates. And the kids just think it's hilarious to walk around with, like, we talked about our museum walk hands behind the back, and trying to do it without talking at first was really interesting, to have them not pick out like, oh, look at that, or look at that drawing, and like their need to like communicate verbally so much. It was nice to try to, we had post-it notes, so having them like hone that in for a little bit. And then once everybody had something written down on the post-it notes, being able to start talking about it then.
Cool.
Another kind of big advantage of that one, I thought, was that that students get the opportunity maybe to get a new idea that, and like it's not coming from me, it's coming from one of their peers. They're going, oh, you have something on yours, and so that's an idea that I want to learn about or explore. So I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great way to get new ideas.
Yes.
I was just thinking of another way that you could use the gallery walk during when kids are doing math application problems. I'm always wanting them to look at everyone's models and that drawings. And that takes a really long time. So this is a great way to have them just see.
And similar kind of thing, like similarities and differences. Who's solving something similar to my way or different from my way, and why? Yeah.
The only one that I thought of is acting it out. So like theater, we did a little bit of theater with different types of water molecules.
What's up?
I love our online blog. It's
Yeah.
great. Taking over. It's awesome.
Awesome blog. Yeah. So what's some of your thinking around that?
I would use this tool for when we're missing kind of an idea or something, or just to kind of cement the idea that what we're learning, so they can, especially for those other learners that are not big
in, that need to physically act it out. Yeah. It helped us a lot when we ran into some problems with like soil particles and water molecules and being able to put on a little play. So they broke up into small groups and then we're able to put on a play of what happens in the water cycle. So yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not answering these boxes very well. No, it's why would this tool? So kind of cementing student knowledge, or I'm sure there's a more teacher way of saying that. And then I'd use it after a concept, maybe. Yeah. After they have that new, maybe the experiment happens and then they talk about it and then we say, okay, now act it out. Yeah.
Great way to reach all learning styles too.
It would be memorable too.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're cementing it, but
Right.
Yeah.
It's gonna make it memorable.
And it would tie back to that developing these models in a way because they're just creating a model that
Totally. Nothing says models have to be physical pictures, right?
Right.
There are many ways to model.
as well as communicating ideas.
Yeah.
10 seconds left.
There's so many more good ones we could talk about.
Take a step back. Model building, obviously.
So sorry.
Just partner.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead and de-blobify. I don't know how they destroy the blob in the movie, but whatever way they destroy the blob, let's do that. And so now you are not a blob. You are back to your individual self. And I kind of want you to take a moment and look at that chart and kind of see what connections you see, kind of synthesize that knowledge for you. And then I know I do a really good job when I specifically picked out, like especially when a bigger, longer training, like pick out 1 or 2 or 3 tools that you're going to try to keep implementing into your classroom and how you could see that being implementing, kind of making a plan for how are you going to continue all the great shift in pedagogy that you've done already. How are you going to continue that even though Puddles is done? We don't want to go backwards. So we want to keep moving forwards. So now just 5 minutes on your own, just kind of synthesize it and then make your plan of how you're going to continue forward using these tools and resources. hopefully you have some ideas jotted down and you have a future to, or a plan to lead you into the future. So we are almost at a close here. I wanted to just say thank you so much. I know that this has been a big ask during a time that is already very busy, during a time that you're getting the new ELA curriculum, during conferences, I know this is a really big ask, and I so appreciate you being here and your commitment to continue to be here and your flexibility as we kind of, as we've had to make adjustments based on limitations that we have and new issues that came up. And so thank you so much for being flexible and patient with us as we do that. I will not be seeing you again until March, which is just so sad because I've seen all of you so much, but you're still always welcome to email me with any questions that you have. If you say, hey, I'm thinking of trying out this one thing. Can I, shoot some ideas off you? Totally would love to do that. I also miss getting in classrooms because I used to have classrooms of my own and now I don't, and I miss kids. So if you have something really cool that you're doing and you want to invite me to your classroom, I'd love to find a way to make that work as well. So just know that even though Puddles is over, I and the other people at the science department continue to be here to support you and to help you as we make this all together, this shift. So thank you very much. The last thing that I'm asking you to do is the evaluation. As I said, it is a little bit longer of an evaluation than the ones that you've been doing in the past. There are paper forms. There are also Google forms if you would prefer to do it on the online. So because we're fancy like that, we do things online. And if you're viewing online, then you should do it online because you don't have paper version. So if everybody could please finish this and then clock hours, and then we will be finishing early for the evening. So thank you.
Yes. Can I?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. And Jen has something to say. Sorry.
Just because we indicated we would come back to this in November, and it is November. I don't quite know how that happened. But another piece of paper that I'm just going to put for everybody on tables is, again, the consent forms associated with research on the project. So we're looking to learn, again, what can young students do? They can do a ton. Actually being able to document that is really important. And also, how is this model working for people? I think the big question right now is, does this require anything more of me? And honestly, I would say it is more giving us permission to be able to sort of think with surveys or think with student artifacts from a research perspective, rather than asking you to do anything new or additional. So you may have already made a choice on this. If you didn't, you had an option way back at the beginning to defer. So now I would ask you to make a choice. Or if this form is kind of new to you and you haven't turned it in yet, then also make a choice. But I'm happy. I'll pass out forms and then I'll hang over at that table just so that I can be available for questions and any co-thinking that comes up. So thank you. Just to reiterate, Boyle, thank you.
So thank you for watching online in whatever way you watched it just now. Hopefully that worked out well. So go ahead and finish this evaluation. Clock hour forms, you could have them at your front desk area, and you can just fill them in and then send them to me at 32303 for the mail stop, and I will sign them and get them where they need to go. And don't forget to submit the question that they wrote on index cards, and then your rubric and also your classroom tracker for the rubric, and post those on the teaching channel under lesson 4. And I do believe that's it. I'm hoping that this worked. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we tried this new technology. And I really do appreciate your participation. Let me know if you have any questions. And till then, I'll talk to you later.